In today's market, buyers aren't just looking for a house, they're looking for a guide, someone who can make the overwhelming process feel possible. The truth is, the way that we served buyers even a few years ago isn't enough anymore. So, how do you rise above and deliver the kind of experience that makes buyers raving fans and long term advocates? Thank you for joining us today on the Power Huddle. I'm your host, Dill Ward. I'm an icon event team leader with eXp Realty in Portland, Oregon. With almost 20 years experience in this industry, I believe strongly business should be more than just transactions. It should be a path for personal growth, meaningful success, and a life that you are excited to wake up to. Woo! All right. Well, and that's why we designed this series, Agent Inspired, to shift the way you show up in your business so you can lead with purpose, create lasting impact, and bring more joy into your everyday. Today, we're talking about working with buyers. And I've joined here with a special guest, a fellow agent here in Portland, Christine Orlandi. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? I'm really excited. This is
Yeah, thank you for being here. I've admired your work in the industry, and that's my favorite part about this series too, is that we get to just kind of reach out to our peers and see how other people are doing it. Because my favorite part about real estate is we can all be attacking the same thing with a different mindset, different skills, different tricks, different things we've learned along the way. And it's really fun to synergize and share that. So I'm so glad that you are here.
well, thanks for having me. It's a huge, huge honor. I respected you for a long time as well, so it's great to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, tell me, just like give me some backstory because obviously we just are like two ships passing in the night. I always
Yeah.
like to joke with other agents, like, have I ever texted you and begged you for anything? Because that's usually how most relationships go. But tell me a little bit about your backstory.
So I grew up in New York, and then my parents moved to Florida. My mom is a realtor as well, with Berkshire Hathaway. She's retired now, but she likes to get those referrals still. And I moved to Portland in 2008 when things were pretty nutty. Obviously our economy had just tanked. And my background at that point was in high-end retail and high-end footwear. So I was fortunate enough to withstand the economic storm working for Nordstrom, which kind of led me here to real estate because they just offer obviously this incredible level of service to all of their clients. And that really set me up for success when I entered the real estate world in 2018. And I started at Keller Williams. I've been with the Place Portland team and we've moved from Keller Williams. Now we're here at Windermere. But I started my selling role on our team in 2021. But I was the TC from 2018 to 2021. And I feel like that really set me up for success now.
Nice. So yeah, so you really like watching how everyone else was deal making, and you're like, hey, I want to get in on that.
Yeah, I was like, what am I doing? I'm leaving a lot of money on the table.
I love, a lot of great agents that I have known have worked at Nordstrom. I mean, that must be like a breeding ground for excellence because a
Oh,
lot.
I say all the time, I'm like, you're coming, like, it's like the rite of passage. If you don't want to move to the mothership in Seattle, you end up just, you're like, okay, Hill Estate, great. And I know a ton of successful agents that have actually come from Nordstrom and a ton here in Portland. And it's really fun to be able to carry that like culture into our business now.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, let's just get into it because I would love to kind of hear, especially since you've been in relatively half the time of like, my mindset at this point. What are you seeing like even from a couple years ago? Obviously during COVID, buyers needed us to do just, everything and anything crazy. But what are you seeing like now from buyers in terms of that's different from what they need from us?
Well, when back in 2020 during COVID, and I was, on working with Amy Walsh, and she, I think in 2020 she closed 48 deals. So my piece of that was just like helping her support those clients and helping those relationships stay intact, because it was just so hectic. So 2021 too was the same way. When I joined, full-time selling in 2021, it was really kind of crazy because the market was starting, we were seeing, the shift because it was late 2021. So people were not as, I think as crazy as it got during COVID. They weren't, overspending or, anyway. But long story short, I kind of entered it as things were starting to level out a little bit. And so the demand wasn't as insane, but what it taught me was seeing her go through that crazy span of business. It taught me how to slow things down and really understand what the client needed. And the client right now needs to have an advocate. And, I think back then we were advocating for them, but we were also, it was so hairy that they, I think it was almost like we weren't making the best choices in a way because people just like wanted to get into the market so badly that they overpaid. And now I'm even seeing clients come back around where I'm like, okay, how can I help you maximize that sale? Because the value at some points isn't there from what they paid in 2021, 2022. So for me, that advocacy of just understanding what they need and how to create that lasting relationship has really come in handy the last couple of years. Because I think that the relationship is just the key to that success, but understanding that the market is kind of shifting towards a buyer's market and how to advocate for them and get them a little bit more of what they need now versus what they might have needed a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just from a data centric place, right? So now buyers have access to everything. Like they're scrolling the app and they're looking at what the house sold for 20 years ago. They're trying to take all this information in. And I think more than ever, they need us to parse the information to what is relevant, what is valuable in trying to make an informed decision about what that house might be worth to them because they get so lost in drowning in the information that their emotions then start making up these stories. I've noticed every buyer lately is very good at making up these crazy stories in their head that you're like, what does it have to do with anything in this house? And so we'll
Well,
really, yeah. Sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think, it's funny because, the media plays and media and social media, right? They're following every realtor, on the planet. And then they're like, well, my friend did this and my friend saw this and, the Zestimate says this. And I'm just like, hey, like each house is a different story. Each property that is for sale is a different story. Each scenario is different. I'm like, you can't look at this overarching blanketed information and like take that as like the gospel, so to speak. I'm like, the house that you buy needs to make sense for you. The payment needs to make sense. All the things on your checklist need to make sense. And I'm going to help you get there. Don't, I think you have to drown out that noise a little bit because it's so overwhelming. And I think that, the buyers right now are just, like you said, there's just too much information. So I try to like really drown that out and focus on what they need and really, especially in Portland. Like we have, I think, one of the craziest real estate markets probably in the country because we're kind of insulated at times. And, the inner core of Portland is just so desirable. And, sometimes I'm like, you may want to be in the inner part of Portland, but you could move 50 blocks away and get so much more and really maximize your like equity, right? So anyway, but I just think that it's really the biggest goal right now is to drown out all the noise of what the media is saying and what social media is saying as well.
I think that's great advice. And also, I've been seeing long-standing agents that are agent inspired really develop leadership skills. And I know when I call in a professional to help me with anything, and I ask them, hey, I spend all the time explaining what I want, how I want it to go, the outcome I'm looking for. And if they just stare at me with a blank, like, okay, uh-huh, like I lose complete confidence in that person being my leader to take me to the other side of the situation I'm trying to get through. And I've noticed with agents, we don't always see ourselves that way. You know, we're just like, oh, we're alongside. And like, no, someone needs to be out front as the leader saying, here's what you do next. Here's what you do next. Set expectations, provide a roadmap because it's like when two people are leading each other, nobody's like when you can always tell when the client is being led by the other agent's being led by the client, right?
Yeah.
You can always tell when you're like, okay, this agent has no control of the situation and they're not helping them because at the end of the day, they're trying to get to an outcome. And without somebody with a seasoned path knowing how to get there, it's gonna, it's not gonna get there. So I really have long been trying to promote that agents really see themselves as leaders and fill that role because I know when I'm trying to get help with something, I want a leader. I want someone like who's so confident. Oh, this is how you're getting it done, and it's all gonna be the way you want, Dill.
Well, and as we know, just really quick, like that comes with some kind of hard conversations. And that wasn't always my strong suit. And I've really leaned into that this year is having like very honest conversations. Because I want what's best for my client. And sometimes that doesn't always look bright and shiny.
Yes, and those hard conversations are just moving around, right? I remember trying to explain to a first-time buyer who literally had, barely 3% down that they were going to have to waive their inspections or appraisal or take away rights in order to get a house. And that was a very tough You're like, this is going to get me smacked with a frying pan. Like it's a crazy proposition to make to you. But um, let's move to setting expectations early. What's one thing you always do up front to set new buyers up for success?
Um, it kind of depends on like what they're looking for, right? And I think for me, the expectation that I like to set is that we, this might be a journey. It might take us 5 days, it might take us 5 months, but I want to set the expectation that the goal is that we are really going to try to help you make the best long-term decision for yourself and for your family, or maybe it's a short-term decision. But I don't ever like to make people feel pressured. And I like to, have like an open time frame. And so, because I think that sometimes people get really overwhelmed. And so for me, it's just about setting like the expectation of like, let's take our time, let's make the right choices. Because right now we actually, in a lot of cases, have that time where we didn't have that time 5 years ago.
Yeah, time to think is we're going back for a second or third showing is so interesting now, right? 'Cause
I'm like, you can actually see your house twice.
I know. And it's interesting. I was working with a couple, and one of them was looking around, and the other one was kind of done. They're like, "Okay, I'm done." The other one was looking, and she's like, "Are you still looking?" And he's like, "Yeah, if I'm gonna spend $1 million on something, I thought I'd look around a little bit." And it just like hit me in my mind, like, "Oh yeah, I remember when there was people banging down the door that you only had a 15-minute window of time to show the house, and you had to get in and out." And so now, that the ability to be more deliberate and more intentional, I think is super great. I also love to when I'm starting with buyer and I'm not sure if what they're asking is like viable in the market. I like to do this thing I call window into the past. And I'm like, let's pretend you already bought it. So like I'll do a search result for that exact thing they're looking for sold. And then I'll say, let's see if you would have bought any of these and just like have a whole conversation around about what that looks like. Cause I feel like how do you know how to get started? You go into a portal site, you start looking at houses, and then you're making up in your own mind what you think your budget is, what you think your price is. And so, but you haven't really validated that that's actually a thing, right? The house matches your expectation around the price.
Oh, sorry. I was like, waiting for. I was waiting for a question. I think that's a great idea. Like I've never thought of doing that because like I just had a client from DC, and they had a really nice budget, and actually we just got under contract. We looked at 50 houses last week, 50 in the span of 4 days. And when I say 50, with 50 showings, 10 of those homes we went back to a second time. But it was really, now hearing you say that, I wish I kind of thought about that. But we started talking 2 months ago, and I had them start to send me things that they liked. And the buyer is a software engineer. She actually created an app for the home search to keep us organized because there was just so much information going back and forth. And so she did add some houses that had sold, and she was like, in a perfect world, we would want these. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that helps, pinpoint the search. And before they even got in my car last week, I knew what neighborhood they were going to live in based on what they said. And it was like, okay, I have to somewhat humor them at this point, and I need to show them other parts of Portland. So when we get to where I know they're going to live, it's going to all make sense. And that's exactly what happened. Like literally, I if I could have thrown a dart at a map of Northeast Portland and Alameda, like, and thrown it, it would have landed where they ended up getting under contract. And so, that's, I think I love that idea, Dill. I love, like, and I think that, that's a really good piece of advice going forth with buyers. It's just like seeing what might have sold a few months ago that they really love and how to create, the expectation and the dream around that.
And also, I really think that where you start is where you end up. I mean, when they come to meet with us, right? By the time they call a realtor, and I like to say, nobody is going out looking for a realtor. They want a house and they buy product, have to find a realtor and, get in a relationship and start a thing. But it's not like they're like, oh, I can't wait to find a realtor. It's just like a step along the way. They just want to get a house. But whenever I'm meeting with one of the first questions I always ask them is I go, so what's the house that got this conversation started? And they'll go, well, we've just been a little bit looking. I'm like, yeah, but what's the house? Because there's always a house. There's a house that's an impetus that started the conversation inside the family unit that got it started talking outside the world and trying to pull in information and resources and people to help. And even when they say, no, 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 you keep drilling down, there always is one. It could have been last year, it could have been last week, it could have been last night. Like there's just a house. And once they show you that house, you have all the information you need. You're like, okay, you know where their mind was going. And then you can kind of take them from there. And I just think that we sometimes miss that beat, to get that intel because they'll always say they don't know, right? It's kind of like sellers. You ask, what do you think your house is worth? I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, they know. They know.
They all. But for newer agents out there, if you're asking this question and you're not getting the answer, you have to keep asking the question. Like you have to keep drilling because the answer is there. They're just not ready to share or they forgot about it or whatever, right? You got to dig in because that's really deep intel and to guide them to the future reality. Okay, let's move to the next question. Can you share a story about when you had to get creative to help a buyer win, even though it's not like super competitive, because we are kind of in a sort of more supposed buyer market, there's still those multiple offers, right? So how do you tell a buyer, yeah, I know it's like completely in your favor everywhere except this one house?
Yeah.
How do you tell them that?
Well, this is kind of like a half success story. And, I'm basically sitting on the sidelines now waiting to see if we actually, we're in backup position. And it's a really unique triplex in Portland in the in like on Salmon and 22nd here in Portland. So like a very desirable area. And, my client was like, I'm not spending more than X amount. Like this man, I worked with him for 6 months. He's like really dug his heels in on like, he doesn't want to get into a bidding war. He doesn't, and I'm just like, okay, that's where difficult conversations come in is that like, here's the reality of this situation that like certain parts of our community are still very competitive. And so he, I think the creativity always comes with the communication that you have with the other agent. And a lot of us in Portland, how many agents are there in Portland? Like 12,000 like licensed agents, but there's only so many that, do consistent business, right? So like a lot of us know each other. So, I was able to pick up the phone, call the agent who I already have a relationship with, ask her about how to strategize around it. Because I think, our relationships within our community are so important. And I was able to get him to, based on the information that she gave me, I was able to get him to completely reset his expectations. And which took me 6 months to get him off of that, you know, like, soapbox that he was on that he's not going to pay more than asking. And while we did not win, that house and we're in backup position and I'm really hoping that something goes south because I really would love to see him in this scenario. But it was the creativity is just about like how, you can strategize with the other agents to make it most successful for your client. And I think that the relationships are the creativity because you have to, you know, be able to pick up the phone and have candid conversations with agents and just be able to strategize. And I think that that came in really handy in this situation. I was able to get him to come up $50,000. I had him, keeping the tenants in place, which he was like not like, but I tried to point out what those the advantages of this situation were. And without the agent on the other side being good at her job, I wasn't able to be good at my job. And she helped me get creative with him and get him to a point where, you know, he could see the other side. But anyway, hoping that one works out in my favor, but I'm not sure it will, but it was definitely, it was a unique experience for sure.
I absolutely love this. I think you've just given some super solid advice that everyone out there needs to take to heart. The relationships we have matter 100%, 120% because, guys, this is a relationship business. I can't believe how many agents you can't even get to answer a phone in today's environment. You're texting, you're like, I don't want to text 20 paragraphs. I just want to chat on the phone. So, but how do you get them to answer? You have to be likable. And what is being
Yeah.
likable? It means, and there's so many micro ways to be likable, guys. Uh, every time I see someone go into the masters forum and complain, why are agents sending me their listings? I'm so sick of it. I'm like, dude, that is like the golden opportunity of supporting other people and just providing a little like, yay, nice listing. Takes 2 seconds, right? Hit delete. It's call it good. But those relationships are what get you buyers in the door when there is competitive environment or just get it done at all. I mean, this is the reality. Everything is a bit of a struggle in today's market. Every single transaction has some shade of crazy, and two agents need to strategize and be resourceful to get the things done because buyers and sellers are mentally checking out. They're not getting their crap out of the house. They're expecting too many things. And I've been saying a lot. Everyone seems to believe that all situations are in their favor, right? They're always like, oh, well, it's we're gonna close late, but that's fine for me. It's like doesn't matter. Everything is always in their favor. So we have to be doing so much conflict management. And it's way easier if the other person likes you. That's so
Well, and the big joke on my team has always been like, how do you become friends with literally everyone? And I'm like, listen, again, we're all going to be doing a transaction together at some point, right? And to me, I'd rather be able to pick up the phone, have a candid conversation, and be able to know that like I'm going to win for my client, but I'm also going to have a strong community. I don't want there to be bad blood. We're all here to make our buyers and our sellers happy. And I think that, once we get to that place, like, we're going to all be super successful. There's enough business to go around, you know?
I love it. These are great, steadfast beliefs that will take you to the test of time for a long-standing career and keep all the goodwill coming. Um, Christy, how do you stay connected with buyers after closing so that they see you as more than just their agent?
I am constantly texting. I'm constantly checking in. Is it a birthday? Is it an anniversary? Do they, need, just like always talking about vendors, like what projects they're doing. I keep of like unfortunately half of it's in my brain. I should probably like write these things down somewhere. But like I am constantly staying connected with my buyers and sellers by sometimes I'll just drop something off. And that's like, old real estate 101 where it's like you do Popeyes or whatever. But like the other day I had a client who referred a buyer to me, and I had thanked them via phone call, but it had been a couple weeks and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to swing by. I know they both work from home. And I just like dropped off like a really nice bottle of olive oil because I know they like to cook. And I just wanted to see them in person and say thank you for trusting me and thank you for referring me business. Because, it's just it's just the way that my business has worked, is that I am almost 100% sphere and referral based business. And I feel so honored because I know that a lot of agents, as you know, young as I am in the industry, don't have that luxury. So I continually, not to sound cheesy, but I just always want to express gratitude. And I am doing that every day, one way or the other, even if it's just a text to say, hey, I was thinking about you. Just wanted to say, hey. And, it doesn't have to always be, you know, do you need this? Do you need that? Like, I'm having this event. It's just as simple as saying, hey, I was thinking about you. Just wanted to say hi. How did the kids' school year start? Like something small, just to make them feel special and that it's not always about business, that it is a personal relationship.
You just said something so powerful here. For our newer agents out there, and you're listening to this, and you're just like, I want you to stay in this business. I want you to be successful. And what she just said was, there was a time when she was getting started and she didn't have referral business. And now she's already accomplished an inflow of repeat refer clients. How do you keep yourself going and motivated during that when you're crossing the chasm? And I believe you just said it, but I'm going to let you describe it in those just staying in communication with people, just staying in touch and just caring about people.
I mean, it's funny because I was telling an agent the other day who was asking me for like advice, and she's newer. And she said, how long did it take you to sell your first house? And I said, it took me 6 months. And I was so upset about that because I thought, oh, I know everybody. I'm going to have a sale within like 30 days of getting into sales. And it was 6 months. And Amy, my business partner, she was like, hey, it takes 90 days to like, start to get the pipeline flowing. And so once I closed that first deal, I was like, oh God, okay, thank God. Like, because I literally thought I was going to quit. Like, I mean, I just like, maybe this was not for me. And I just realized in that 6 months, I literally got in touch with every single person I knew in any capacity. And I was just like, even if I hadn't talked to them in 10 years, I was like, hey, what's up? Like, you just came to mind. And that is what I do continually. Like people just want to feel acknowledged and people want to feel important. And I try to make everybody that I work with feel as important as someone I've known for 30 years, even if I've known them for 30 days. Like I just, they have a place in my life and I continue to express that.
I love that. I love that everything you're saying is totally in alignment here with everything we try to teach through Agent Inspired of just really being a cool person out there. Again, no one's looking for a realtor, but they are looking for nice people who might help them, who seem competent and have good leadership skills. So if you can get yourself in the way of their life while they realize they have a real estate need, then bam, you're the person of choice. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here today and to share with us. Let's just give them one big takeaway. Let's just center one thing for people out there to go out there and go help some buyers.
It's take it day by day and just know that you are creating a reality for people that sometimes didn't know they had it. And you know what? It's just like create relationships and friendships and like make the dream of homeownership a success. We can all do it. And we're fortunate to be in a really amazing industry. So
I love that. Everybody, please go follow her. Christine Orlandi, where can they find you?
On Instagram, my handle is the unofficial mayor of Portland. It's an ongoing joke. I got 240 write-ins on this last election cycle. But yep, and I'm also on LinkedIn, but Instagram and LinkedIn. Come follow.
I love that. I love the unofficial. I love it. I'm going to go follow you. Thank you so much. Until next time, everybody, stay curious, be bold, and stay inspired.
Thank you.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.